Hello students, my name is Dr. Ashutosh and welcome to another video lecture of biomechanics. As you know that now we are going to start with the regional biomechanics. So the first joint that we are going to study is the shoulder joint. The very first lecture of the shoulder joint is the osteology of the shoulder complex. Means what are the bones that are present that forms the shoulder complex and what are the important impressions or the landmarks which are present in these bones. We are not going to see all the bones in very detail, but briefly we are going to look the number of bones which are present in shoulder complex and what are the osteological features of these bones. Just to revise the anatomy that we have studied, that we had studied in the very first year of our physiotherapy, what are the bones that surround the shoulder complex. So let's start today's lecture. So first bone is the sternum. So there are basically 4 bones that form the shoulder complex. First is your sternum, second is your clavicle, third is your humerus, and the fourth is the scapula. The very first bone, sternum, is having 3 parts. First is the manubrium. Manubrium is the uppermost part of the sternum. As you can see in this diagram, this green part depicts the manubrium. Then there is the body. Just beneath the manubrium, the body is represented here in the pink color, and the last process, which is the last part, which is the xiphoid process, here is represented by the purple color. So the sternum is having the 3 parts. First is the manubrium, second is the body, and third is the xiphoid process. There are some important things that we must know about manubrium, because this is the part of the sternum that is going to form the very important part of the shoulder complex, which is the sternoclavicular joint. So sternoclavicular joint is formed between the sternum and the clavicle, and if I be very specific, then the manubrium part of the sternum and the medial end of the clavicle comes and form this sternoclavicular joint. There are 3 important things that we must know about the manubrium. First is the clavicular facet. Clavicular facet is the impression which is present to accommodate the clavicle on the manubrium. So the clavicle comes and articulate with the sternum at this clavicular facet to form the sternoclavicular joint. And also there are some costal facet. As the name is representing, these are the facet for the attachment of the ribs. So as you can see in this diagram also, there are 2 ribs which are getting attached at the manubrium, the very first rib and the second rib. So there is a impression, or there is a facet on the manubrium. The facet, which is nothing, it is actually the depression on the bone to accommodate the first rib, and there is a depression in the manubrium at the lower end to accommodate the second rib. Also there is a jugular notch which is present on the superior aspect of the manubrium. So these are the 3 things which we must know when we are studying the biomechanics of the shoulder joint, that there are some clavicular facet, costal facet, and jugular notch is present at the manubrium. Now let's study about the osteological features of the clavicle. First and foremost is that your clavicle bone is convex in the medial direction and concave in the lateral direction. Here I am having a clavicle bone with me. So as you can see in this clavicle bone also, this is convex in the medial direction and it is concave in the lateral direction. You can also see in this diagram, it is coming outward in the medial direction and going backward, which means concave in the lateral direction. Also remember that your clavicle bone is 20 degree posterior to the frontal plane. As you can see, this black line over here in the diagram is representing the frontal plane, and your clavicle bone, this is your clavicle bone, and it is placed 20 degrees posterior. This is posterior part and this is anterior part of the frontal plane. So your clavicle bone is placed 20 degree posterior to the frontal plane. So this is how your clavicle is located in this space. It is always 20 degree posterior to the frontal plane. Now rounded medial or sternal end, this, as you can see, this is the medial end or the sternal end. This is known as sternal end, as this articulates with the sternum to form the sternoclavicular joint. Now there are some important landmarks which are present over here. First is the costal facet. So costal facet is the facet that rests against the first rib. As you can see, this is the first rib which is present over here. To be more clear, if I'll show you this diagram, then you can see this is the clavicle bone and this is the first rib. So the part of the clavicle where this first rib is getting attached, it is known as the costal facet. It is over here in this impression. If I just demonstrate you on this model, then your costal facet will be somewhere over here. Then there is a costal tuberosity which is present at the medial or the sternal end. This is very important as it is having the attachment site for the costoclavicular ligament. Costoclavicular ligament plays an important role for the stability of the sternoclavicular joint. As we all know that sternoclavicular joint is a very stable joint. We cannot see a lot of degenerative changes on sternoclavicular joint. Also, there are sometimes the cases that the medial directed force of the sternoclavicular joint results in the fracture of the clavicle, but your sternoclavicular joint do not displaces, which means that this sternoclavicular joint is having the immense capability of the stability which comes from the surrounding ligaments which are present at the sternoclavicular joint, and one of those ligament is the costoclavicular ligament, and it is attached between the costal tuberosity. So this is your costoclavicular ligament which is present between the first rib and the clavicle. It starts from the first rib and ends at the costal tuberosity of the clavicle. Now there is acromial facet which is present on the lateral end. Here the lateral acromion process comes and articulates. If I'll show you the scapula also, this is the spine of the scapula and this is your acromion process. And over here the acromion, this is your lateral end of the clavicle and this is acromion. So this is how it articulates with the scapula. So lateral end is having acromial facet where it gets attached to the acromion of the scapula to form the acromoclavicular joint. Now there are two more important things that we must know about clavicle is that on the inferior aspect of the clavicle there is cunoid tubercle and trapezoid line which is the attachment site for the conoid ligament and the trapezoid ligament. These are the part of the coracoclavicular ligament. So coracoclavicular ligaments connects the coracoid process of the scapula with the clavicle, and this ligament has two parts. First is your conoid ligament which is of cone shape, and second is the trapezoid ligament which is of trapezoid shape. Your conoid ligament gets inserted at the conoid tubercle and this trapezoid ligament gets inserted at the trapezoid line or trapezoid ridge. So these are the osteological features which we must know in order to study the biomechanics of shoulder of clavicle. So what are the things that we must know? That it is convex medially and concave laterally. It is directed 20 degree posterior to the frontal plane, and there are three impressions like costal facet, costal tuberosity and acromial faces on the medial end, and there is conoid tubercle and trapezoid line present at the clavicle which marks the attachment of the conoid ligament and the trapezoid ligament which are part of coracoclavicular ligament. Now let's talk about the scapula. So scapula is having three angles which is your inferior angle, superior angle and lateral angle. Also it is having three borders. Which are the three borders? There is medial border, lateral border and superior border. But before understanding that, we must know what is the anterior or ventral surface of the scapula and what is the posterior or dorsal surface. So this surface which is not having any ridge, this is the anterior or ventral surface. You can see in the very first diagram also. And this surface which is having a spine, this is called as the posterior or the dorsal surface. So this is the anterior surface and this is your posterior surface. Now your dorsal surface or posterior surface is divided into two regions, and these two regions are divided by the spine. You can see this thing, this is the spine which is present at the scapula, and this divides the scapular surface into two parts. And which are those two parts? The infraspinatus fossa which is present inferior to the spine, and there is supraspinatus fossa which is present superior to the spine. So on the dorsal surface there are two fossas. This is your infraspinatus fossa and this is your supraspinatus fossa, and there is a spine which divides these fossas. Then there are some borders, which is the medial border and lateral border. This is your glenoid cavity which is present over here, and the border which is just lying, which is in continuation with this glenoid cavity, is the lateral border, and this is the opposite border is the medial border, and the border present on the up direction or the upward direction is your superior border. So this is the medial border in the anterior, this is your medial border in the anterior view, and this is your medial border in the posterior view. Now the scapula is having the lateral border also. This is your lateral border in the anterior view, and this is your lateral border in the posterior view. Then there is this superior border. As you can see, it is present on the uppermost part. This is known as the superior border of the scapula. Now apart from this, scapula is also having some angles. So first is the superior angle. As you can see, this is the superior angle, which is with the superior border and with the medial border. This is called as the superior angle. Then there is also inferior angle. This is between the medial and lateral borders. Then there is a lateral angle which is present between your lateral border and between your superior border. So this is the lateral angle, this is the inferior angle, and this is your superior angle. So this is how it looks like. This is your inferior angle, this is your lateral angle, and this is your superior angle. Now scapula is also having three lateral projections. Which are those lateral projections? First is the coracoid process. This projection that you can see anteriorly, this is the coracoid process. As you can see in the diagram also, this is the coracoid process which is present anterior to this glenoid cavity. Now there is this spine. As I told you earlier also, spine divides the dorsal surface into supraspinatus fossa and infraspinatus fossa. This is the spine. Then this spine continues and forms the acromion. This part is known as the acromion of the scapula. Also we must know that the glenoid fossa is 5-degree upward tilt. You can see this is your glenoid fossa. It is in the 5-degree upward tilt present to accommodate the humeral head. So always remember that your glenoid fossa is tilted 5-degree upwards to accommodate the head of the humerus bone. Now also, as we saw earlier, that clavicle was 20-degree posterior to the frontal plane. It is located in the body 20-degree posterior to the frontal plane, whereas your scapula is located 35 degrees anterior to the frontal plane. You can see this black line is representing the frontal plane, and this red line is the scapular plane, and the angle between them is the 35 degrees, and it is anterior. It is out in front of this line, and over here it is in the back of the line, which means clavicle is posterior to the frontal plane and it is anterior to the frontal plane by 35 degrees. These are two views. This is the anterior posterior view and the anterior view, and this is the posterior view. And here you can see the attachments of the different muscles. So here the subscapularis muscle is attached, and over here you can see infraspinatus muscle is there, supraspinatus muscle is there. This is the attachment site for the levator scapulae. There rhomboides minor muscle is present. Here rhomboides major muscle is present on the medial border. On the lateral border, on the lower side there is teres major, and on the upper side there is teres minor. There is the attachment site for the posterior deltoid. And on the anterior side you can see that there is subscapularis fossa and the long head triceps, which is the infraglenoid tubercle. Over here the long head of the triceps is coming out. Then the coracoid process is present for the long head of the biceps, as you can see, and short head for the short head of the biceps, and coracobrachialis also it is present over at this point. Then upper trapezius points attachment site is also given over here. So these are actually, we will discuss all these things when we will study in detail in the biomechanics of the shoulder, the kinetics part, but this is to give you the overview about which are all the muscles that are present on the scapular bone. Now let's study about this was all about the scapula. Now let's see the humerus. So for shoulder complex we are going to study the proximal to middle humerus. We are not going to see the distal humerus, that we will study in the elbow joint biomechanics. So this is the longest and the strongest bone of the upper limb. Remember students that humerus is the longest and strongest bone in the upper limb. Now you can divide this humerus into three parts: proximal third, middle third, and the distal third. One important thing or interesting thing to remember is that your this Humerus is having the head at 135 degrees of angle of inclination with the long axis of the humerus shaft, which means that your head is located at 135 degrees of this humerus shaft. Your shaft and the angle between the head and the shaft is 135 degrees. This is formed because when we are growing, there is a law which is known as the Wolff's law, which decides how the bone will form according to the stress of forces. Now, proximal to the middle humerus. Related to the mediolateral axis of the elbow, humerus head is 30 degrees with the horizontal plane, which means it is rotated posteriorly. Retroversion means rotation posteriorly. This is the mediolateral axis of the distal third, and with in comparison relative to this axis, your head is 30 degree posteriorly rotated. So this is the thing which I am telling you, that this is the axis. In comparison with this axis, your head is 30 degree posteriorly rotated, which is the retroversion is present in the head of the humerus. Now this is the anterior view and posterior view of the head of the humerus, and there is the lesser tuberosity. As you can see in this diagram also, lesser tuberosity is the part which is present just adjacent to the head of the humerus. Now let's understand on this bone. As you can see, this is the bone which is present over here, and this is the head of the humerus, and the part adjacent to the head of the humerus is the lesser tuberosity. This is the insertion point of the subscapularis muscle. As you can see in this diagram also, the subscapularis muscle attaches to the lesser tuberosity of the humerus. It arises from the ventral surface of the scapula, from the subscapularis fossa present anteriorly on the scapula, and its function is to adduct and internally rotate the humerus. Now there is a bicipital groove which is present between the greater tubercle and the lesser tubercle. This is the lesser tubercle, and with adjacent to this is the greater tubercle, and between these two tubercle there is a sulcus. This groove is known as the bicipital grooves because the bicipital muscle tendon passes through it. The long head of the biceps tendon originates from the superior head of the glenoid of the scapula. From the supraglenoid tubercle, it originates long head of biceps, and it passes through the shoulder joint and enters the bicipital groove. Then this is the greater tuberosity that you can see from the anteriorly also. There you can see this is the greater tuberosity, and from the posteriorly also you can see this is the greater tuberosity. Now greater tuberosity is having three muscles to attach. First is the supraspinatus muscle, second is the infraspinatus, and third is the teres minor. The supraspinatus muscle attaches on the uppermost part of the greater tuberosity of the humerus, which means it attaches somewhere over here on the uppermost part of the greater tuberosity, and it arises from the supraspinatus fossa. We all know it arises from the dorsal surface of the scapula, from the supraspinatus fossa, and its function is to abduct the arm. Then this is the infraspinatus muscle. So your infraspinatus muscle originates from this infraspinatus fossa, and it gets inserted on the middle impression of the greater tuberosity. This is the middle impression of the greater tuberosity, and its function is to externally rotate the arm. And there is the teres minor muscle which attaches on the posterior inferior part, this part of the greater tuberosity of the humerus, and its function is also for the external rotation along like the supraspinatus muscle. The supraspinatus muscle on the uppermost impression, on the middle impression there is infraspinatus, and teres minor on the lower impression, which is functioning as a external rotator. Now three muscles also attached to this bicipital groove. As you can see, this is the bicipital groove and its margins. So pectoralis major muscle attaches on the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, and latissimus dorsi muscle attaches to the floor of the bicipital groove, and there is a mnemonic also that a lady between two majors, because latissimus dorsi is present between the two major muscles. First is the pectoralis major, which is present on the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, and then there is teres major muscle which is present on the medial lip of the bicipital groove. So this is why we can remember this thing by a mnemonic, which is a lady between the two major. Lady over here is the latissimus dorsi, and teres major and the pectoralis major muscles are the majors. In between those, latissimus dorsi is present. Now deltoid also attaches on the lateral aspect of the shaft on the deltoid tuberosity, and your coracobrachialis muscle attaches on the medial side of the shaft. So these are the two more attachments that we must know on the proximal to middle humerus. Triceps lateral head and triceps medial head arises from the posterior shaft. So this is the posterior shaft. On the posterior shaft there are two triceps head. First is the lateral head and other is the medial head, arises from the posterior shaft. Over here in the diagram also you can see this is arising from the posterior shaft, and from where your infraspinatus your long head is arising, your long head is arising from the scapula. Now teres major muscle also attached to the bicipital groove that we all know. This is the radial groove or spiral groove. Over here this is the groove for the radial nerve. So whenever there is a fracture of humerus, there are chances for this radial nerve to get injured, which can result into the paralysis, which we call as the wrist drop. So this is the clinical anatomy that we must know. Now proximal to middle humerus, your infraspinatus muscle is there, your teres minor is there, and this is the lower facet, and the triceps lateral head attachment is present over here, and triceps medial head attachment is present over here. This is upper to the radial groove, and this is lower to the radial groove. So that's it for today's lecture. In today's lecture we got a brief about the bones which are present at the shoulder complex, and we saw the most important osteological features that we must know about these shoulder complex muscles. We did not study it in very detail. Actually this was a part of anatomy, but we got an overview about the bones which are present, like your sternum, your clavicle, scapula, humerus, and what are the important osteological features that we must know before we start the biomechanics of the shoulder complex. Thank you so much. If there are some queries, then you can always ask in the comment section.